Hey there, it's Lucas Catton. Welcome back. And today I want to talk about something that I think is pretty funny and sad at the same time. And many of the things that I talk about, I think, have those sort of dual subjects, if you will, within the same subject. But this particular thing is talking about thought and framework of thinking and the frameworks in which people think, and how many of us don't even realize that we are only thinking from within a framework, if that makes sense. So we've all heard the term thinking outside of the box, and it gets overused and usually is meant in a sort of like a creative manner, start thinking in a new way that could be, more beneficial, creative, etc. But we set that aside when it comes to other parts of our lives because we've been taught to believe or think that the certain set of rules or mandates or dictations or whatever are like truth. And I recently had somebody talking about, they were in search of the truth. And I had mentioned, the problem is that I don't know that we'll ever get to absolute truth, or that most of us won't ever get there, if anyone, because we're all thinking within our own frameworks or filters or set of rules and circumstances. And then that was followed by, some comments of other people who said, oh, well, this is the only thing that's the real truth. Then somebody else goes, no, this is the only thing that's the real truth. And I had a conversation with somebody else last week, similar thing, where I was trying to address their situation in a very light way and say, well, maybe it's time to look outside of this set of rules that you've been looking at and think that maybe there could be some other information that you're not aware of from some other source or some other resource. And this person proceeded to follow with, like a quote from their only resource as being, oh yeah, I see what you're saying because so-and-so says this, therefore that must be the case. So we see this a lot right now. There's all kind of shaming that's going on in our public lives. And some of it is, a lot of it, most of it, shaming in general is not necessary. Like we can address things, we can address problems and correct them without then having to make this issue that we're going to now put everyone into a new category or a new box. And I'm sure you could think of lots of different things at the moment, and I'm not even going to go into a whole lot of specifics there because I'm not trying to choose anything that this is in reference to necessarily. But it's kind of funny because I have been in the situation of being in a mindset of only thinking with a certain set of rules. Many people in religious aspects, this is how they think, that whenever they need to know the absolute truth or whatever the mandates are of how they should live their life or how the world is constructed or that kind of thing, they revert to their religious texts. And that's okay if that's what is serving them and they're not harming others in the name of that and that kind of thing. And I'm not trying to talk down on any religion necessarily, anything like that. But it proves the point because you can have two people from completely different sources, religions, political parties, etc., cultural differences that say, no, this is the absolute truth. And they go, no, this is the absolute truth. And they both firmly believe it. And in most cases, neither one are actually correct. And in the environment that we're currently in and all the difficult situations going on, there's the term that popped in my head was thought police. And if you've ever read, which I confess I've not read all of, George Orwell's book 1984, it shows up in there, thought police and thinking crimes or thought crimes and that sort of thing. But I'm going to separate from that. There's just a dictionary.com definition that says, thought police is a group of people with totalitarian views on a given subject who constantly monitor others for any deviation from prescribed thinking. And I was thinking about this because I saw somebody else on a social media channel that was completely condemning anyone that viewed a certain way, and then somebody else basically did the same thing without understanding that there might be something more than just that extremely narrow way of viewing that particular topic. And I try and remind myself of this all the time because I'll catch myself doing that, either shaming someone or judging them because of where they think or whatever. And it kind of goes back to my previous video on we get more of what we're looking for, But in this case, in the thought police, where we then feel that we must shame or condemn anyone who somehow could possibly think or feel or believe something different than we believe, or think something different than we think, or turn to a different source of information than we got our information from. And I think when we can start to open up and go, hey, there is maybe more than one source that's possibly saying the same thing. You can find, I use the golden rule, for example, in my children's book, We Are All People. I talk about the golden rule and how it's a beautiful thing. And there's so many different ways of saying, treat people well, treat people how you would like to be treated. And I even say, treat people how you would like your closest and dearest loved ones to be treated. Because sometimes we're willing to endure things because we feel like we're potentially, whatever, we can handle it, or we're strong, or that doesn't bother me, whatever. But don't treat my child that way, or don't treat my spouse or sibling or whoever that way. So think about it that way. Would we really want someone else treating our closest and dearest loved ones the way that we might be treating someone else? Or would we possibly want to sit down and maybe have a conversation? Maybe we can come to some more understanding in a more civilized way. Maybe we could also realize that there's more than one way of saying the same thing from different sources and resources throughout the entirety of history. And at the same time, there can also be differing truths for different people. They could be taken out of context and placed into another where it might not be true in that scenario or in that context, but it can be in another one. So when someone is thinking outside of the box, whatever the box is, look at that from a bigger box. What are the frameworks that we're thinking within? Who are the sources of information that we're pulling from that we believe are the absolute truth? Where did they get their information come from? For example, what are some of the circumstances that may have been created in, and are those circumstances valid today? So there's so many different examples where this can be a part of it. And I think that if we're willing to look at that and maybe just for a second be willing to question things. There's another previous video where I say question everything, but don't be cynical. Be willing to question things and go, in the spirit of like Byron Katie, for example, is this true? Maybe not. Maybe only in this circumstance, or maybe something else. And anyways, that's all I got. Please don't be a thought police. Be someone who can think outside of any box, and or realize what boxes they're in, and that you can jump from one box to another and approach things maybe in a more applicable manner for that circumstance, or realize that there may be some other information that could be counter to what you're thinking or believing at the time that could also be true. Like sometimes these truths aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but or it could be more true if there's degrees of truth, but really be looking at things with a more open mind. That's all I got today. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I hope that you are optimistic for today and the coming future. And I'd love to hear from you. Reach out anytime, lucascatton.com. If you like this video or any previous videos, please do subscribe and share as you feel compelled to. Thanks again.